What is up, assholes? Welcome back to a Gwent video. Not gameplay this time. I wanted to do something more discussion-based. I like to do that from time to time. I have mentioned that actually playing Gwent, at least in its current state, is probably my least favorite part of the game. Which, it doesn't bode well. It's not a good sign. But the fact is, I do still very much care about this game. I love following the game's development through this last year of development. Card drops, balance patches. I'm always, just as excited as I've always been. Even if I'm not really planning on playing the game a whole lot, although I'm always, open for decks and cards that just look so fun that I have to try it. But today, we're going to be taking a look at a specific archetype, and this is something I may do more of. And if you have specific archetypes you want me to cover in this way, both good ones and bad ones, do let me know. Of course, you're going to have to see how this video actually turns out before you know if this is a format you are interested in. But yes, we'll be looking at Harmony, and as the title and thumbnail probably will be displaying, I am not very positive towards the state of Harmony. I personally think that they took it in a bad direction, and you do keep in mind pretty much everything in this video is going to be very subjective. Like, these are my personal opinions. There are people who love Harmony right now, love the way they've taken Harmony, the direction they've taken it in. They love these cards, and that's great. That's great. You have an actual deck you like to play. That's awesome. Personally, for me, Harmony is one of these scoia'tael archetypes that I like the most. Like, conceptually, it's quite up there, along with dwarves and symbiosis. And even elves have actually been creeping up, but they're kept down by just some stupid stuff. But that's irrelevant. Conceptually, Harmony is way up there, maybe like second from the top. Dwarves will always be the best. And there was a time when I really wanted Harmony to get more support. And then it did, and a lot of it I was very positive towards, but then it got some more support, and just in general, the way they've taken it, I'm not into it. And a big part of that is my dislike for 14 provision cards, and to a degree 13 provision cards. I feel like, to me, and please do let me know if you feel the same way, I feel like the difference between 13 and 14 provision cards just feels very big. Personally, I think 12 provisions is like the perfect top end provision cost. But there are quite a few cards at 13 that I think that I actually really, really like. Which, is sometimes making me question my philosophy that nothing good happens above 12 provisions. But ideally, I would like them to take those cards and tone them down just enough that they can cost 12. But, 13 is fine. I can deal with 13. What I can't deal with is 14. And again, keep in mind, this is very subjective. My opinions. If you don't agree, you don't agree. You are very much allowed to. But yeah, 14 provision cards. We've gotten a lot of them. And they're often controversial. They're often really, really powerful. And of course, they're the most expensive cards in the game. Why shouldn't they be powerful? Of course they're more powerful. But the fact is, when you get to a point where you're including 14 provision cards, especially when you're including 3 of them, like Harmony has been doing alongside a 13 for quite a while, like, you end up polarizing your deck in a very specific way, where the mid-level provision costs are really suffering. You have a lot of cheap bronzes, and like maybe a few like mid-tier stuff, and then you have the top end, which is also very heavy. it makes your deck draw dependent. And with the way they've designed 14 provision cards, like they're not just powerful as they should be because they're 14 provisions, but it's like the jump from 12 to 13, and then even more so from 13 to 14. The jump in power level just seems weirdly large. And we've seen this with several cards across all archetypes. Scenarios very much included, although the first line of scenarios like Feign Death, very toned down compared to newer cards. So they're not really part of the conversation right now, but still, they're 14 provisions, and that causes some issues for me. But for Harmony, we're talking Mysteries of Locthwain, a scenario. We have talking Dana, talking Saskia Commander. Used to be 13, but really was always. I've never liked Saskia in Harmony, but she is a staple in Harmony. And why is that? Well, powerful card. She does work with the whole idea of having many different primary categories. And she herself has one of the most unique categories in the faction. So in many ways, yes, of course, there are many ways she makes sense. But every card that she summons, if she summons a dwarf, it's because you haven't already played a dwarf. And she also prevents you from playing a dwarf to trigger Harmony. And that's why I don't like her, because I'll be showing you a Harmony deck that I played back when these new scenarios came out. It's a deck that's not really relevant right now because of some changes. But that deck was more focused on playing the categories and just continuously triggering Harmony, using Chameleon, and I also want to talk about some missed opportunities regarding the whole playing and triggering Harmony as many times as possible. I think when I think of playing a Harmony deck, I want to trigger Harmony. Saskia kind of goes against that. She triggers it once with her dragon tag, but then she's just good thinning, really good points on board, but then she denies you multiple Harmony triggers, which obviously is not hurting the deck too much because this has been the preferred way to play it for quite a while, but it's a bit counterintuitive to me, and I don't like it. Overall, I do like Saskia's design. I know a lot of people have issues with her. I think it's a cool card. I think it's an effect that can exist, at least somewhat. And I understand why this card has to cost 14 provisions, or at least 13, which it used to be. But I don't really want cards that powerful in the game, and I'm not a huge fan of Saskia, but I don't hate her. Like, I don't hate her core design the way I know a lot of people do. I don't like her in Harmony, and I'm overall just not comfortable with such a high-end card that has become quite the staple for the faction. Dana is probably the worst offender here, because you're going to see this when we can actually just go back here and we can go to my old Harmony deck. Obviously, there have been buffs to cards, so this is the exact deck that I used. It now has room for 5 extra provisions, and it is using these dwarves that do not really work outside of Mahakam Forge decks anymore because of the barricade and them not having base armor. But they used to have base armor, and Munro used to just have Zeal Order and 3 charges of Transform, and not this whole cooldown barricade thing. But yeah, this is the deck that I was playing, and as you can see, I did have Mysteries of Locthwain, because it's one of these things where they introduce these cards to archetypes, and they're just so good, and they're just so closely linked to the archetype that you feel like an idiot if you don't play the card. Like, there was a period where people actually was just running Renfrey instead, because Renfrey was so busted. But now that she's been toned down, somewhat enough, you're always running this. If you want to play Harmony, you are running this. And I feel like build around cards, like archetype defining cards that you cannot escape when you're playing the deck, you're building the deck. I don't think they should cost 14. And I know that that's an issue that I have. It's my problem that I don't like including 14 provision cards in my deck. I don't like polarizing my decks that much. But look, I've tried multiple times to make like a Harmony deck because I wanted to make a Harmony deck that didn't use these expensive cards with a stronger mid-curve build. But scoia'tael does not have any way to support that. So if you want to play Harmony, you're forced into playing this. And, like, I'm okay with one. I can deal with one 14 provision card. It's the same with Alchemy. I wish Gedenith didn't cost 14, or at least wasn't so crucial to the archetype. But I can deal with the one card costing 14. Same here. One card that costs 14. I have a 13, I have a 12, I have an 11. And then, 3 8s and a 9. And more 5s than the usual Harmony decks do. And I felt pretty good about this deck. It was really fun to play, using Chameleon to trigger Harmony a bunch. We had some extra Harmony units like Half-Elf Hunter. And this felt really good to play. When I played this, I was really enjoying myself. I was really, really enjoying myself. I've tried the newer Harmony lists with a heavier focus on 14 provision cards. I enjoyed myself significantly less. Yes, that's just all about me. That's not an objective fact that you enjoy yourself less when you're playing the more common Harmony decks, but that's how I feel. That's how I felt. This felt more like playing Harmony to me, and I wasn't as locked into a certain polarization of my deck. Now, this was before Dana was even in the game. Now, she's in the game. She is a relict, which is a very, very unique tag. It's a very unique tag. We can just take a look. Obviously, scoia'tael only cares... Harmony only cares about scoia'tael units with the tag, and there are only 2 relicts. Well, 3, but Torque does not count. Only 2, and they both have Harmony. They have a unique tag for the prologue of the scenario. And Dana is just a nuts card. If you're playing a deck with a lot of different primary categories, non-neutral, and that's either Harmony, but it can also be a movement. Movement is kind of what I want Harmony to be, where you have elves, dryads, witchers. You can easily throw in some dwarves. You have all these different categories working together to form this new archetype. And that movement is one of those decks where I kind of like Saskia Commander, because she makes a lot more sense there, because that archetype doesn't care about you playing the cards, just getting them out there. So she fits more into that. And it's that same thing about, you're playing all these different categories, and therefore you can make them work together in harmony. You know what I'm saying? And Dana, she can work in that, but, she works really well in Harmony. Unique tag, she has Harmony, and she's just a stupidly powerful card. If you play this turn 1 in a Harmony deck, she easily plays for 14 points. Immediately. If not more. And she's an engine on board, and with her Harmony, but also if she does not get killed or locked, she will keep boosting things in your hand or boosting things on your board. And it's just, both her forms have such a high amount of guaranteed value, on deploy, on the turn she's played, and she has a hefty body. This is 7 power is not something you just kill. And if you heat wave this, the tempo loss. Yes, you only pay 10 provisions for the heat wave, but your opponent is left with quite a few extra points. And if you don't have the removal, your opponent will just skyrocket their score. So we've always been complaining about answer or lose cards. Like either you have the answer or you'll lose the game. But Dana is part of this movement towards just lose either way. It doesn't matter if you answer it. You know, now it's more have your own bullshit thing. And you know, if your opponent answers your bullshit thing, then you gotta be able to answer their bullshit thing. But it's not enough to just answer their bullshit. You have to match it. Or lose. And yes, like there's always things you can do, right? You can bleed it out, right? They can maybe not draw it. Maybe the round 3 is so short that this is not a good card. I mean, even in a short round 3, this will play for enough points to not be game-losingly bad. So I think it's just... I do not like this card. I don't like it. You know, this feels like a card where they decided... And I think this might actually be true, because if you look at the other cards from the same card drop, you know, they decided that, oh, this is going to cost 14. This is going to be the most expensive card in the game. And because it's the most expensive card in the game, we could just give it a nutso effect with just complete disregard for any form of balance, because it's the most expensive card in the game, or, you know, tied for it. At least Mysteries of Loch Fane, although this is quite the offender of the whole heatwave thing, because this usually plays for probably 10 or more points on the ploy, which is so crazy for a scenario. And it's again, if you can answer this with a heatwave, you're still not even making that good of a trade. If you can't answer it, then you better have your own crazy bullshit card, or you're gonna lose to this. And again, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a short round. If they just have 2 Harmony units, one of which could be their leader, they can trigger this. It's worth a lot of points. It's just nothing more to it. That's just what it is. It's just what they do. Good card, good card. And, you know, Simless with backup plan. I got this particular list from Team Ellerblood, their snapshot from June. So it's a fairly recent list. And, look, I would never do this. I would never run Simless backup plan in Harmony. Especially with, ironically, there's no backup plan. If you draw one of these, if you're stuck with one of these in hand, Simless has no alternative targets. So there's no backup plan for the backup plan. You always gotta have a plan C, right? But this is just like, yes, it's like, this is your elf, right? This is the elf you want to play. But then you're just getting a backup plan. And you're playing more elves, but they won't trigger Harmony. They won't have Harmony. They could. You can get Half Hunter. You can get it from both of these. But what's the point? What is the point? Like, it feels like this is not even that many points. Like, it's 6 points plus whatever you're getting from the 2 elves. Like, it's decent. But I wouldn't really say it's worth 13 provisions, especially with, you know, the risk of it bricking. Like, either you risk bricking this, or you don't spend your mulligans very efficiently. It's kind of greedy, but like the payoff doesn't seem worth the greed. But that's besides the point. That's besides the point. Okay, so there's been a lot of negativity so far, and I mean, this was always meant to be, you know, sort of a negative video because I don't like this. But, you know, we're gonna get into the part where I'm maybe more constructive, where I actually talk about what I would have liked, you know, how I want this to be. I did mention that I would have wanted, you know, more mid-range, more mid-tier provision costs to be involved. And I also specifically want to highlight a fairly new card, the Heist. The Heist got a rework. It used to just repeat deploy effects, but now it actually replays the card. And when this rework was introduced, I very quickly thought of Harmony. Okay. So I can play a scoia'tael Agent, Bandit, or Soldier, which covers at least 2. At least 3, like multiple categories. I can play one of those, trigger Harmony, and use a cargo to replay it. And that sounded like a really good idea. Like, ooh, the Heist is actually a really cool card. I know there are people who don't like it, there are people who like it. Personally, I think it's a really cool card, and I'm sad that I haven't gotten a chance to use it. But its main use is waylay spam, which makes me actually want to commit some form of murder. But that is beside the point. So we're going to look at some scoia'tael units here. Soldiers, bandits, and agents, right? Agent. There have been Harmony decks that run Shiru. And they've been the closest to what I want. I want just... have a couple of good elves, a couple of good dwarves, a couple of good dryads. Put them together, and have this payoff for having different categories. And you had this deck that ran Shiru as an elf. 10 provisions. I can definitely respect the 10 provision card. Pretty powerful effect. This was played with Guerrilla Tactics versions of Harmony, and this would even work with the Heist, because, replaying Shiru, he has a small body but a big effect, and you could immediately use it again. It's kind of difficult to use this twice, but it's possible. It is possible. And we have Talianin Edward Cullen. But this is very like elf focused, and for 13 provisions does not provide enough for a Harmony deck that I would consider playing this. So, what are we looking at? Bad cards. Okay. Let's look at some soldiers. We do have the dwarves from my original deck, but they sadly won't work because we don't get the barricade armor on them. Okay, we got Riordan and Angus. Well, Angus requires all this Deadeye stuff. Riordan requires traps. Do we really want to start playing traps in our Harmony deck? No. Saskia is nice, because she's a dragon. That's a pretty unique tag. This is a cheaper way to get a dragon in your deck. She can play for a lot of points, and replaying her with the Heist would enable you to replay this order effect, which is, and also get a new thing. So you'd be getting, like, let's see, these are like 5 to 6 points plus, like 8 or 9 points off of one cargo. Pretty valuable. Retriggering the dragon Harmony trigger, that's pretty decent. But Saskia does have that other thing of potentially turning off one of your other Harmony triggers. But of course, if you play this after you play an elf and you just spawn the Deadeye, that could work. So that's decent. That is decent. Otherwise, useless. All of these useless in Harmony. I mean, Teruvial could work. Teruvial could actually work, especially if you do have Saskia. You can go for like Saskia and get an Elven Deadeye, and then you can just use Teruvial as just a good thing, just a good card. You just need to control an Elven Deadeye, and she's actually pretty good. Could definitely be worth replaying as well. But these are useless, and now we're getting into the bronzes. And there's not much worth replaying here, especially not in a Harmony deck. Like a couple of dwarves, a couple of useful dwarves that you could be replaying here, but not much beyond that. Now, Bandit. Bandit is interesting. A few of the same cards here that we've already seen, but we do have scoia'tael and Mirlega. Here we got a beast and an elf. And you know, if we do have both of them, replaying either one with a cargo, good value. Good value. You know, so there are some elements there, but it's not enough. It's not enough. But that's what I want Harmony to be. Like, not necessarily the high stuff. Like, even if you disregard the high stuff, you know, let's look at the categories, right? So we have Dragon. See, that's fine. Like, Synthesis is useless. Saskia Commander is obviously played in Harmony, but I would like something different. Saskia, I could go with this. I could live with this. That's nice. Gnome is actually probably the more successful category Harmony-wise for me. Percival is a good Harmony engine, and I like Barnabas. Barnabas can be a lot of points. If Barnabas was like an agent and could be replayed, ooh, with cargo, ooh, yes, I would love that. Either way, like, it's you can get like 14 points from this, and a very unique tag. And you know, even having Saskia could help you make sure you have an elf, a dwarf, and a dryad. Although dryad would not be hard. Let's see what else we have elf. You know, elves, they're struggling. So this deck, for instance, it has Simless, and then just some crappy 4 provision elves. And I mean crappy, a sapper and a dragoon. Those are the elves. Alongside Simless and a backup plan. And the backup plans, you always want to play with Simless, and therefore the Harmony trigger from them does not matter. You could play just backup plan as a way to trigger your elf Harmony. And it would even... Does it count? No, that only counts units for the Power of the Dawn aspect. And so there's not much point to just running this. But see, let's look at the elves like we're missing out on. There is a Harmony elf, but it's terrible. You do have scoia'tael and Mirlega, which... But the thing is, again, draw dependent. If you don't draw both, they both suck. If you can't play them both together, they both suck. And let's see. Trap Synergy, bad card, needs elves. Could be decent if you have enough ways to spawn. The Deadeyes, you know, that would be a reason to run Half-Elf Hunter. Another way to get Deadeyes for Teruviel to be a playable card. Malayan could be like a bandit. Like, I don't know. Maybe she's not a bandit. But she could at least be just a good 9 provision value elf that you can just play in Harmony, trigger your Harmony with the elf tag, and you know, not really worry about anything else. And there's not really much else. Like, this is terrible outside of hand buff, and yeah, everything else here just kind of sucks. Philivandrel could be interesting if you could create, like, if there was any way to reliably get him to a point where he could play a Harmony triggering card, which would be what? We've been looking at 11 provisions. Or just a tutor. Tutor could be nice. Him playing elves does not do anything. Like, there are things you could do, but then, you know, if you were to play that, you would need ways to buff them. Other tags include Witcher. Cat Witcher is very popular. I enjoy playing Cat Witcher Mentor because it has synergy with Squirrel. No, not Squirrel. Chameleon being replayed. But yeah, you can run Brain. A lot of the Guerrilla Tactics versions ran Brain, which is nice. You can even run the Adept if you really want to. The easy one is Machine, because there's just one. But it's pretty decent. You can play it on melee and just have a very solid unit that can keep all your future engines safe. It's very decent. It was even more decent You know, back when I was playing my original version, when even the dwarf tokens could be useful. So that would be nice. Treant. You know, we do have a Harmony Treant with an order effect that cares about unique primary categories, so you're pretty set there. I really wouldn't mind having a second one, like a second Treant for Harmony, just so you can trigger it in 2 rounds. You know, I was running Oak Critters because I was having a Devotion deck, which I think this also is. So you can run Oak Critters just as a cheap treant, decent value treant. But I mean, Weeping Willow, like you're pretty set. You're pretty set. Dwarf. Dwarf is not so easy as it used to be. I mean, people are just throwing in just a couple of Berserkers for Saskia to pull out, but that's it. That's it. Which does mean, like, you don't want to keep this in your hand. So you want to pull one out with Saskia, you want to mulligan the other, and so you're not actually getting the dwarf trigger. Maybe with Chameleon, but Chameleon would still trigger Harmony with something else, so it doesn't matter. Dwarven Skirmisher could work. Could be really good with, you know, a heist version. Pyrotech, kind of the same thing. Could work, especially with heist. But there's nothing super interesting. You could play Giant Slayer, but then what's the point? If this does carry over into the next round, you cannot trigger your Dwarf Harmony in the next round. But you can help with Barnabas. Polly, just weak. I mean, if Polly was playable, that would have been awesome for Harmony. But yeah, just nothing special. What am I missing? Dryad. Dryad is, you know, not that difficult. You know, you have Dryad Fledgling, just a well-statted engine. You have Dryad Rangers and Forest Whispers for the poison, which some people like to run. You can run Fauve for tutoring. Sirsa has Harmony, but I mean, come on, why? Nobody runs this. But you have a fair amount of Dryads, and if you're like me, then you're also running Water of Broccolon, which, you know, kind of shuts off the Dryad part of Harmony. Have I missed anything now? Probably have. I mean, Relict, but that's Querexis and Saskia. I don't like either of them. Let's see, anything I missed? Beast. Beast is, you know, there's Merlega, and you know, you could just run the Sabertooth Tiger if you want to keep playing Beast. You have Antherian and Chameleon, but Chameleon, I mean, will very rarely actually be a Beast. Panther's just a bad card. Trained Hawk has Harmony, but it's just a bad card. It's a very bad card. What the hell? But yes, you have this if you want to go for it. You do obviously have the Lake Guardian. So you're kind of set on Beasts. Beast is not really an issue. Let's see, we talked about Witchers. Human. Useless. You have Abandoned Girl. But again, kind of the same thing. For this particular, you know, traditional Harmony, you want to pull one out with Saskia. Do you really ever want to play one of these? Useless. 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 Terrible card. Dude, if Pavko Gale was just a solid 8 provision scoia'tael human unit, maybe give him a deploy or a zeal one-time use big order effect so he can be replayed with the heist. Now we're talking. I mean, it's Berja. It's Berja. Why is this one of the worst cards in the game? If this was just a playable card, we'd be looking at some Harmony Gold right there. It would be awesome. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I've covered all the tags now for units. And I hope I made my point clear. Long story short, I don't like super expensive deck polarizing cards, and I don't like when an archetype is just really just driven straight into that direction. Like, oh, you gotta have these 3 14 provision cards, then you gotta have a bunch of crap in your deck, and you're playing Saskia, so you're not even triggering Harmony most of the time. And like how much harmonizing are you actually doing here? Like, how is Lake Guardian even worth it? Like, sure, this will play for decent value for 8 provisions. So like I get it. But you are not even triggering Harmony most of the time. At least that's the way it looks. Maybe in practice you're actually doing it a lot. Maybe I am just not understanding. But I don't like this. I do not like this top end stuff here. This deck just, it's, how many bronzes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay, 16 bronzes. That's fair. That's a fair amount. I've played a few decks with 16 bronzes. It's okay. And, you know, Saskia will pull a lot of them out. So, I mean, that's why this is definitely okay. And Simless will pull 2 of them out. So, you know, you will be getting your golds. But, it's just, this is just depressing to look at, you know? It's depressing to look at. That's the wrong list. This just felt a lot more interesting to me. Like, this felt so good to play. Like, when I built it, I felt really good about it. When I played it, I felt really good about it. And even looking at it now, just looking at the numbers, like, oh, there's only 114 in here. We got a few 8s, just more 5s than 4s, or, you know, the same amount. 8 of each. See, again, 16, but it looks so much nicer. It's just, you know, more of the good cards, less of the bad cards, and you know, none of the crazy nutty cards. Now, keep in mind, I do also have 5 provisions to spare, so I could definitely upgrade this quite a bit if I wanted to. And I've tried, but I can't get it to a place where I want it to be, and then it just... No matter how good I make this within the confines of what I want to play, it will always be inferior to just playing the big cards. And that feels bad. That feels bad. So, yeah, that's